there, and welcome to Jump Button Gamer Podcast. I'm Mike Woodard, that's Kosta. We're two guys here to gab about games, and unfortunately we are two guys who did not have enough foresight to see this GameStop stock situation, and I wish we had been cued into that, so we missed our opportunity there. We're going to discuss that crazy story, and a little later in the show we'll talk about the Resident Evil Maiden demo, and we'll talk about some of the crazy stories that we've experienced in video games that you may or may not believe. But like I said, we have to bring up this crazy Reddit takes on Wall Street via GameStop story. For people who might not know the story, I will do my best at very simpleton-like explanation where a bunch of people on Reddit were basically trying to play the Wall Street game the way that Wall Street guys do, and they basically inflated GameStop's stock to the point that basically a hedge fund got bankrupted because of a shorting system that they were trying to pull off. And it's caused a huge ripple in both Wall Street. I mean, this is a story that's just been everywhere. Kosta, we're both 90s kids. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think you would hear GameStop? Like, imagine late 90s, early 2000s. Did you ever imagine you would think GameStop would be used as a patsy by Redditors in a battle against the 1%?
Growing up, GameStop sort of, it's so funny because GameStop for the longest time had just the gaming retail market cornered.
Oh, of course.
I mean, they're pre-owned, game sales and trade-ins and everything. And there was a very brief period of time where other retailers like Walmart and Best Buy, like, they tried to get in on that whole, like, oh, we'll take game trade-ins and all this other stuff. But GameStop had been so well established, like, they couldn't be taken down. But obviously digital gaming and digital marketplaces have sort of, chopped GameStop out at the knees. And I don't know. It's a very internet thing to do, for Reddit. I mean, this, in today's world, in a 2021 world, and just how much impact social media has and other online communities, I'm really not surprised at all. And ultimately what this is going to lead to is there's going to be a lot of, good and bad, probably changes in Wall Street regulations and stuff like that, because the people who sit at the top with their millions, if not billions of dollars, are going to want to avoid another instance of this. But I don't know. If people are willing to gamble their money on it, because ultimately that's what this is. I mean, the situations with GameStop, AMC, and other stocks that are being sort of honed in on by the people of Reddit. It's gambling. It's not like your typical form of investing. They're just basically force feeding money into a stock, because typically, it's based on, like, is this company, like, financially viable? Right. In today's marketplace, GameStop is really no longer a financially viable business. No. But now they are a Fortune 500 company based on based on their stock values. So
that's been a great source of memes, like where you had the meme where it's a standard business meeting, but Big Bird is sitting there. Yeah. And it's like GameStop sitting among the Fortune 500 companies.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, great for the people who managed to get in on it and make a little bit of money. Funny story though, I was actually this was back in November, when everyone's, trying to find, the next gen consoles. I actually had a conversation with my dad about GameStop as a business, and at that time I remember we just happened to look at the stock price for GameStop at the time, and it was trading for maybe like, I don't know, $6. or something
wow.
like that. Something really low.
Of course.
And
yeah.
but I'm just like, no, they're gonna go bankrupt within the next couple of years probably. They're closing down a bunch of stores and and go figure,
Come on, man. You didn't look into the stars and see a group of internet trolls deciding to hop in there and...
If I only knew.
Come
if I'd
on.
only known.
I mean, you got to have that foresight if you want to play the game.
As the saying goes, the internet is undefeated. So I really don't think there's going to be any end in sight. But, word of the wise to anyone who is, playing around with the Reddit stocks and stuff, just be careful, because ultimately whenever everyone decides they're done having fun with this, the stock the value is going to plummet.
Yeah, oh, of course.
It's going to drop really, really, really fast once they decide they are done having their fun with it. So
well, and somebody pointed out this week that it's funny because before the pandemic hit, GameStop was basically trying to reorient their retail business model to be more like spaces where you come to play games. Like they were going to have like couches and consoles set up, and I remember seeing a video of a store that had
during a pandemic.
Well, right. Obviously, this was right before the pandemic.
Right.
Like that they were trying to do it. And right, obviously, now you can't. So that model kind of gets destroyed. But in an inverse way, GameStop, kind of gets saved a little bit by the pandemic too, because video game sales just went off the charts with everybody staying at home and wanting more content. So video game sales have just been crazy. So honestly, it's a very odd inverse correlation where the pandemic normally would hurt any other retail chain generally. And GameStop, it actually saved them a little bit. And now the fact that we're talking about them as, like you said, being currently among the Fortune 500 companies is just, I can't imagine anybody could have predicted this scenario playing out at the beginning of 2021.
I mean, as with anything else on the internet, things like people on the internet move on to the next thing rather quickly.
Oh, sure.
Right now, GameStop is, the belle of the ball right now. And pretty soon, someone else or something else is going to come walking through the door and they're just going to drop it and move on to the next thing.
I'm seeing a lot of, on my Twitter feed, I'm seeing a lot of Dogecoin, which is supposed to be like the dog version Bitcoin. Like apparently people are trying to push that as the next, let's do what we did to GameStop to Dogecoin or whatever. And that sort of stuff, that's what I'm staying away from. I'm like, I've seen this happen all the time where everybody's like, oh, look, it's rising. See, you should get in on this. You should get in on this. And then it just disappears and never happens. So
just do your research, do your homework,
And then on the inverse side, this is a little bit of an older story, but how much does it suck, since I brought up Bitcoin, to be that one guy who has a few million or $1 billion worth of Bitcoin stored on a hard drive that he can't access because he forgot the password?
I mean, if you're gonna have 50 character password, you gotta write that stuff down and keep it somewhere.
It somewhere. Oh lordy! I mean, you have all this money in Bitcoin, and maybe when he bought it, it wasn't worth the value at the time. But even still, this is what he bought it for. So it makes it even worse that he forgot the password, because this is the exact scenario he was hoping when he bought the Bitcoin in the first place.
I can't pretend to act like I know a single thing about cryptocurrency and how it works or anything like that. But it's my lack of understanding of it that has kept me from dipping my toes in that water. But I'm I got too much other stuff on my plate to invest the kind of time and money into something like that.
So let's start off our show with as always, our aptly titled Now Playing section, where, you guessed it, we talk about the games we are currently playing. Kosta, what have you been playing recently?
Well, I most recently downloaded The Medium, which is a new sort of psychological horror exclusive on the Series X. Downloaded through Game Pass, and it is the first exclusive title made specifically for the Series X.
Wow.
So I figured I'd want to, give it a chance and just see what sort of, potential next gen experience the game is offering. And I've probably played the first couple hours of it, and I mean it's a fine game. It gives off Resident Evil vibes, and the whole premise of the game is you play this medium. You're this woman with like these clairvoyant abilities, and she's trying to sort of figure out where did she get her powers from, and you have to sort of think, kind of like, I guess like in 4 dimensions, sort of speak, because you have like these a lot of puzzles you have to solve. They're pretty easy, but it's like one of those things where you're like sort of like going back and forth between like the spirit world and the physical world.
Sure.
And you have to do some things on one end to affect things on the other side, and so on and so forth. It reminds me a little bit of Resident Evil, with the just sort of like the style. Hasn't been like terribly. There've been like a couple of small jump scares so far, but nothing.
So, what sort of like clairvoyant abilities do you have? Are they like psychic abilities, or is it just like in terms of puzzle solving, or
right? So she like the character name's Marianne, and she's just like able to just I don't know, just like look into another realm. Like there's like a spiritual sort of realm that runs parallel to the physical world.
Okay.
And so, if you come across like an obstacle or need to like decipher something, the answer to it might be on the other side of where you are and stuff like that. So you're basically just, just like with the push of a button, you're going back and forth between, and it's really as simple as that as far as like what her powers are. It's literally just this ability to see into another realm that resembles the physical world, but it's like a lot more white and black and stuff like that, and a little bit more decayed, but you can tell like, oh, this is like this because it all sort of like takes place at like this hotel or this mansion or whatever.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, so this is what this space looks like in the spirit realm, but there are things I can see here that I would normally see in the physical world that like can give me insights into how she got her powers, or to get like information to solve like a puzzle.
Okay.
I mean it's pretty straightforward. It's by no means like a groundbreaking game.
Sure. How far into it are you?
Like I said, just a couple hours.
Okay. Gotcha.
Not very far into it, but but the game itself, actually, I heard is not very long at all. It's probably around 10 hours or so.
That seems especially short.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that. So if you're somebody who doesn't have Game Pass and you pay the full $60 for it, it might come across as a bit of a ripoff from the price department.
Sure.
But the game looks nice. Like visually, it's very, very nice. Again, and the story's like somewhat interesting because also like it's kind of like almost telling like 2 separate stories at the same time.
Sure.
Like the story of things going on in the physical realm and the spiritual realm, and you're just sort of waiting for the storylines to sort of converge.
Okay.
As well, and sort of like see what's like the common thread running between them. But again, it's a pretty standard fare horror psychological thriller style of game. If someone's looking for something new to play, and it's something that's not a terribly long game, I haven't finished it yet, but I'll probably end up seeing this one through and finishing it. Yeah.
And apparently it is profitable already. It's only been a few days, and apparently it's already eclipsed apparently it has already made enough money that the game is already profitable. And that's only with it only being on Series X, S, and PC. So that's a good sign.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that it is the first exclusive next-gen title for Xbox, and
sure.
And people want to start having those next-gen experiences.
That is true.
So,
especially because there are so many games that are getting delayed So it's getting harder and harder to foresee, what we're going to play on these consoles within this year. I mean, obviously, later in the year, we'll have, some big guns hitting later on with Halo Infinite. And for PlayStation 5, you can have, like, Horizon and God of War, maybe. But we've already had, a bunch of titles pushed back already. I mean, like we said, Hogwarts Legacy is pushed back to next year. The Lord of the Rings Gollum game was pushed back to next year. So it's just, we bought these consoles, so we want to experience games built for these consoles and new experiences. So yes, I would agree with that assessment. I think that's fairly accurate. For me, I had a very weird chain of succession, I guess, in terms of what I played this past week. I started off by playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and it's not a bad game, but it doesn't hold my interest the way Uncharted does. I don't know what it is. I think a big part of it is that Uncharted has these charming, relatable characters, and Lara Croft is not a bad character by any stretch in these games, but it's just not as fun to play as her. Like when you're going through Uncharted as Nathan Drake, he'll jump to a ledge and, the ledge will fall and he'll go like, oh, no, 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 no. And he'll grab another ledge and he'll be like, ooh, that was close. Like there's a sense of fun, I guess. Like you kind of relate to the character more because he's making these comments as you go along. Whereas with Lara, she'll talk to herself, but it's way more serious and plot driven, and it's just, I don't know, the story doesn't hold up well for me. So the chain of succession that went through my mind was, okay, I played Shadow of Tomb Raider, got bored, and decided, you know what, if I'm going to play a archaeological treasure hunting game, I might as well just go back and play Uncharted 4. So then I went back and played Uncharted 4. And I played that for a little bit. And for whatever reason, in my mind, I don't know why, I just kept getting this nagging thought, you know what, I should try to replay The Last of Us Part 2. So then I picked up Last of Us Part 2. And when I started it, I didn't realize I was still on the permadeath system. So it started me over like at the beginning of the game. So I was like, oh no, I have to go through all these segments. I have to go through all this story. I have to skip all these cutscenes again. And I decided, you know what? All right, fine, I'll do it. So I started playing through. The very first zombie I encountered, I died. And I was so mad. I forgot the controls almost entirely. It's like I couldn't remember how to punch, I couldn't remember how to dodge, I couldn't remember how to guard, and I died after just one zombie, and it sent me all the way back, and I was like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I think I'm done playing video games tonight when that happened. I was just so mad at myself.
So, one other thing I actually want to add, I haven't really talked about it a whole lot on the podcast because it's not really related to video games, but it is a game. During the start of the pandemic, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time.
Right. Yeah.
And I had another group of friends that most of us involved. This was our first campaign to participate in. A couple of them, our dungeon master and one other person who had a player character in the campaign had played before. But this upcoming week will actually wrap up our campaign. Like, so this has been a campaign that's been going on almost a year.
Wow.
When we've been playing once a week for about 2 hours each time. Obviously there were a couple weeks where we skipped or whatever because a number of us had like things going on, but it's just been so much fun. And but we're actually gonna like take after this. I think we're gonna take a couple weeks off, and someone else in the group wants to try their hand at being a dungeon master, be a DM. So
Oh.
we're gonna start another campaign after a couple week break. So like now I get to like figure out like what I want my next character to be and stuff like that. And actually mentioning Last of Us Part 2. So because of me jumping into playing Dungeons and Dragons, I've gotten really into listening and watching the Critical Role podcast.
Okay.
Which there are some familiar names and voices a part of that. You have Ashley Johnson, who voices Ellie, and you have Laura Bailey, who voices Abby.
That's right.
And a number of other, and it's just so great. And like watching that, listening to that, has sort of given me sort of like inspiration for what I want to do with characters and things like that.
So is that a video? Is that just a podcast where they play a game of Dungeons and Dragons and it's just they record what they play, or
so
like
it's both video and audio, so you can watch it on YouTube. Okay. And they live stream on Twitch once a week, but I'm just been getting into it, so I skipped the first campaign they did, but their second campaign's still ongoing. They've done like over 122 episodes to this point, and I'm on episode 22 right now as it stands, and each one's 3 to 4 hours long.
Right.
So
wow.
That's impressive. So it's going to sustain me for quite a while to get through it all. But I mean, it's great. It's also sort of in its own way just like an audio, like almost like an audio TV show, because they're all voice actors, and they're all role playing as well. But then you have like the whole thing where like, all right, roll for this, roll for that. So you have like the moments where you're like, but like the interactions between them, the role playing between the characters is really, really fun. And a couple other people that are in the group that I play with have been listening and watching to that podcast as well. And I think, just sort of like the inspiration we get from that, it's going to open up, how we handle the next campaign, because there wasn't a whole lot of role playing. Like no one's really doing voices. I mean, I'm horrible at doing voices to begin with, but but just more like trying to develop like more of, because it's like we just go and do things. We just agree we go and do things. There's really not like moments where we like sort of have like these interactions between our characters, like the in between moments.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we're probably gonna have more of that in our next campaign. That's gonna be fun.
So there's no moments like in Community where Abed acts out like having sex with one of the characters or something?
I mean, they're like the closest we got to having like this, every once in a while our DM would plan out a session where it would allow us to do more of the role playing stuff, or there wouldn't really be a planned like fight or something like that.
Sure.
And we just had one moment in particular. One of the guys in the group, he has like this tiefling character, and he's, I mean, he's not like creepy, but like, he doesn't play the character creepy, but he's, mildly perverted. Like he's a perverse character. And so like we get to like this large city, and like he just wants to know where the red light district is.
Okay.
He's like, I just want to go. It's like and he doesn't want to just like, doesn't want to like get a dance from like the most attractive elf or human or what. Like he wants to find a hag. And so like that sort of thing, and it was like stuff like that was kind of funny,
Sure.
But yeah, so it's just been a lot of fun. Something that's been ongoing for a year. I'll be sad to say bye to my character and start a new one, but it's been such a fun experience, like, and to think like this is where like Dungeons and Dragons is the foundation for a lot of the stuff we play now.
Sure.
In video games, and so being able to sort of play it at its purest form, where like the numbers that equate to damage like is literally just a number on a dice.
Right.
And that's kind of cool.
So we're going to move on to our main segment of the show today, and that's Last Week in Game News. And I think one of the biggest pieces of game news came from actually it's a little bit older than a week now, but we're going to bring it up anyway, is the Resident Evil demonstration, the
Maiden demo.
showcase is what it was called. Sorry, my mind completely blanked right there. So the Resident Evil showcase that Capcom put on about a week ago, it gave us footage of Resident Evil Village. They also announced Resident Evil Reverse, which is a multiplayer component game, and yes, as you just mentioned, the Maiden demo for Resident Evil Village was released for PlayStation 5 owners. I did download and start playing the demo because now I'm going to say this right at the top. I'm not a big horror person. And I think it's gotten worse, I guess, as I've gotten older, just because it's like, I like playing happy things, like I enjoy positive things, and all these games that make you feel so shitty for playing games nowadays, it's like, like Last of Us Part 2, for example, okay, you and I, we grew up in the era of like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, right, where you drove around, yeah, there were NPCs, but you didn't care about any of them. You just kill them in a heartbeat, like not even think about it. Oh, yeah, whatever, ran over that guy. Now, games make you feel so terrible for doing this sort of stuff. And I'm such a softie now. Like, for example, there's a video on YouTube about The Last of Us Part 2 where if you're sneaking around and a guy is looking for you and he has a dog with him and you kill the guy, the dog like mourns the loss of the owner. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can't handle that anymore. It's like games make me feel so bad nowadays. So it's very hard to get me interested in a horror game nowadays. I love playing Miles Morales because it was just something that's fun and I could just jump on and have a lot of fun playing. So I have played the Maiden demo in parts. It's a first person, almost kind of like a point and click adventure sort of thing, where you're walking around in first person and you basically just have to get out of a dungeon and then you go through a castle, I guess. And the problem is I didn't get too far into it because I have to play it at 10 o'clock at night generally. And it's like by that point I'm like, I don't want to play something horror based, especially one where I don't have any weapons. And I've heard that there's no combat in this demo, which makes me feel a little bit better. I guess, like, for me, if that's how the main game is going to be played, and I've heard that this is not really part of the actual game, this was just kind of a showcase demo that was made for the purposes of being a demo, to give you an idea of how the game would play. If that's the case, it didn't really grab my attention. It's visually gorgeous, and if they allow you to play it in VR, then that would be amazing. It has great atmosphere for that. I just don't know if it's going to keep my attention, which is a little bit of a shame because based on the other things I saw from the footage, we saw that they're bringing back like the merchant type character that they had from Resident Evil 4. Not the same guy, but a similar idea where you can go to a merchant and buy equipment. And they're also bringing back the same sort of suitcase inventory management system from Resident Evil 4, which is kind of cool. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you like that sort of style of game? And based on what you saw, are you interested in Resident Evil Village?
I mean, I haven't played all the Resident Evil games. In fact, the only one that I have played was Resident Evil 4.
Me too. I'm glad we're in the same boat here.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen of the game, it looks interesting. Like I remember like having my interest piqued a little bit by Resident Evil 7, Biohazard when that came out. I know a few folks who have played through it and they really enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind horror games. Like I'll play it if the experience goes beyond just jump scares.
Sure. Yeah.
Like if it actually has like an interesting story to tell, and it has good gameplay mechanics. Right. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I might give Resident Evil 8 a shot, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
Mm-hmm.
I got so much other stuff that I'm playing and I want to play, and
Yeah.
which is always the struggle. It's like there are so many games that are just on like the fringe, like on the periphery for me. That I'm like, oh, I mean, if I had the time, I would absolutely play it, but I don't. So
Right.
um,
Right. Yeah.
but Resident Evil 8 might be one of those games where maybe I might watch like a let's play of it or something.
Sure, yeah, and that's why I asked, because I'm of the same boat. I enjoyed Resident Evil 4 because it was more of an action-paced game with horror elements.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like that with movies too. I don't really enjoy straight-up horror films. I enjoy films that can have horror elements, but that's not its main goal, I guess.
Right.
A good example would be the Saw franchise. I like the Saw films, but because they're not really horror films. They're just really gory thrillers. They're really gory mystery thrillers.
Yeah.
I mean, they get progressively worse too, but I mean, that we know that. And speaking of becoming,
there's only so many ways to skin a cat, so to speak. Like you do what do they do?
I like how
movies?
you chose the goriest example possible about talking about a series that devolved into torture porn. If there are only so many ways to skin a cat, the Saw series found all of them plus a few extras we didn't even know about. And nobody wanted to know about.
Right.
And speaking of being a softie, those films get harder to watch too with each passing year. I mean, I do still have a stomach for them, but it's weakening. And so I'm kind of like that with games. So I enjoyed Resident Evil 4 because it was more action based. This game, I mean, it looks like it is going to be relatively action based, even though it's first person. So I guess they're aiming for a mix. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm kind of with you. If it was like for free, or like if I could get it in a discount in some way, then yeah, maybe I would give it a shot. Like if it came on Game Pass, and if I had Game Pass, maybe I would have given it a shot. But to go out of my way and buy it and pay for it, it's probably not going to happen. But I hope people who do like the series find this to be a good game, because this seems to be like they kind of relaunched with the last game, right? They kind of said, okay, we need to take a break. All these games are kind of becoming all the same, right? Resident Evil 5 through 7 were not really that much different from each other. And so they kind of took a step back and said, let's reinvent our horror roots. And it looks like this is what they're going with going forward. 7
was the one that reimagined the game as a first-person
right
game. So that was sort of like the step in that direction.
Yes, I'm sorry. When I said 5 through 7, I meant Resident Evil like 5 and 6, but that's my apologies.
Right,
yes.
Right. I mean, so, and obviously they've been going back and they've been remaking the older Resident Evil games. Now there's talks that they'll do a remake of Resident Evil 4 at some point.
I was going to bring that up too, because a good question was purported. Does Resident Evil 4 need a remake? I mean, granted, you can make the argument that a whole lot of games don't need remakes, but Resident Evil 4 especially, it's kind of like a perfect capsule of that time. Of gaming. So it has like, I don't know. I don't know what a remake would do to make the game better, I guess.
Honestly, I think it's just, obviously Capcom has found a nice, money fountain for themselves. They again, I mean, they have done really well with the remakes of Resident Evils 1 through 3.
Sure.
Everyone, all of them have been well received critically, and they've all done well financially, and since Resident Evil 4, I mean, Resident Evil, like all those games, even when they originally came out, were all pretty well received, and Resident Evil 4 is because I think 5 and 6 were ones where like people were kind of like uncertain about where they got kind of like stagnant,
Right.
And then that's when they decided to move in a new direction with 7. But
see, the reason they have success remaking those first few, though, is because they took the game mechanics that they learned from Resident Evil 4, because
right.
Resident Evil 4 was the first time they jumped to this tank, camera behind the back controls.
Right.
And so they went back. So there was like, see, that's a good way to remake a game, is if a game has bad old mechanics from an old generation, you know, okay, yeah, go in and see how it will work with the new mechanics that you eventually have found work better for your series. But again, it brings up the question, does that apply to Resident Evil 4? Because that was the game that made the mechanics better. So, I mean, I don't know.
No, I agree with what you're saying. Like, does it warrant a remake? Probably not. Are they going to do it? Yeah. because people will buy it because it'll have nice, shiny new graphics, you know, and they'll polish it up even more, you know, with regards to the, you know, gameplay and everything. And it'll be enough for people who haven't played the game in a while to revisit it.
You think they'll keep the unskippable cutscene fight later in the game where like you had to watch these two characters argue, and then like you had to do quick time events as they argue, and if you failed or died at any point, you'd have to watch the whole fight again? I wonder if they're going to keep that or not. I mean, hope they fix that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be an opportunity for them to go back in and sort of like reimagine how that might work.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
maybe it's not a quick time event at all. Maybe it could just be a cinematic cutscene. You know,
that'd be nice.
You know, just but yeah. So Capcom's gonna do it because really at this point it seems like the only thing that they're really making a lot of money. I mean, well, no, I mean they sold, you know, Street Fighter and stuff like that, but they. But Resident Evil's the hot thing for them.
Right. It's what they're known for. That's why there was a specific Resident Evil showcase, not like a Capcom showcase.
Right.
It was Resident Evil. And I can't sit here and say that I would not contribute to the issue by being tempted by a remake of Resident Evil 4.
Sure.
I'd be interested in getting it. You know, like whenever they do announce it, it seems like I have a feeling they had planned to announce it, but then it looks like the development is getting a partial reboot or something that they've said. So I don't know. I don't know when we're going to get it, but it looks like it's in the works. Mm-hmm. So it just might be another probably year or so. Like I said, let's put it this way. I'd be more interested in the Resident Evil 4 remake than Village. All right, moving on to another bit of movie news, and this one strays a little bit into movie territory. Well, it does stray into movie territory. The Borderlands film has cast Kevin Hart. And that's about all I know. So, Kosta, if you want to take it over from there, what do you think of this casting? And, yeah, go. What's your thoughts?
Well, they cast Kevin Hart to play Roland, who is one of the 4 primary characters you can play as in the first Borderlands. He also is a character in Borderlands 2. Mm-hmm. It's a strange casting for a couple of reasons. I mean, one is, well, at least if you go based on how they portrayed Roland in Borderlands 2, because he's more of a, you know, he's an NPC. You don't play as Roland in Borderlands 2, but he is one of the like main characters, sort of like helping drive the plot of the story, right? And Roland is a soldier. He's sort of the straight man of the group, you know. Definitely, you know.
So definitely not a Kevin Hart type,
right? I mean, he has his one-liners here and there, but I mean, they're few and far between.
Sure.
Right, and also, I mean, Kevin Hart, like, he's a pretty fit guy, but he's also short.
Yeah.
You know, Roland's like this taller, strapping guy. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It just. This is definitely a role that is way, way, way different from anything Kevin Hart has done before. You know, I mean, when they announced the Borderlands movie and everyone's thinking of, like, you know, who would be the right people to cast for certain roles. I mean, I would have thought Kevin Hart would have been more likely to be Claptrap than provide the voice for Claptrap than actually be Roland. You know, everyone was thinking, like, I mean, I was thinking, like, Idris Elba would have been a really great choice.
Right.
For anyone who watched Arrow on CW, David Ramsey,
Oh yeah.
who played Diggs, would have been really really good. Um, I mean, they could have gone like a number of different ways. I mean, Daniel Kaluuya would have been another good choice, but again, like Kevin Hart just seems like an he's a recognizable name.
Right.
I get it, but it just comes out of left field.
Hey, they got to sell the movie somehow, right?
I mean, again, like I can only imagine like Idris Elba. Like, not that hard. Idris Elba. I mean, and again, like Borderlands, also like a large part of Borderlands as a property is comedy.
Right.
And Kevin Hart is a very well-known and popular comedian.
Right.
But there's also I don't know. Listen, I will do my best to give him a fair shot, like to see a trailer or something, just to get a glimpse of what to expect. I mean, Cate Blanchett was a nice casting choice for Lilith. I'm fine with that. Like that the math works out in my head on that one. But they still have a couple more characters to cast. They need to cast Brick, who's an even bigger, bulkier, like kills things with his fists type of character. And then there's Mordecai, who is more of like the wisecracking sharpshooter type of character. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where. I mean, one of these characters is going to end up being probably a lesser known actor.
Sure.
I would imagine. Sure. But I don't know. Like I was kind of hopeful I was excited to hear about the Borderlands movie because I'm thinking like this could be, just an even crazier, funnier version of like Mad Max. Yeah. But now that Kevin Hart, again, nothing against Kevin Hart, I just don't know if this is the role for him. my hope has dwindled slightly.
It's funny because I looked up I wanted to see when it came out to end the segment on, but it's funny. The first thing I saw was fans baffled by Kevin Hart in Borderlands 3, and basically all of them are saying exactly what you just said. A lot of them pointed out that he would be far better suited for Claptrap. And so I think you and the Borderlands community are all very much in agreement here.
I mean, he could have just been any other character. Like I just don't know. I don't know. I can't pretend to understand. I mean, I guess there's a reason why I'm not in the industry. I'm not a director. I'm not a casting director. So and the other thing too is that Gearbox, like the president of Gearbox, Randy Pitchford, to my understanding, is pretty involved like with this project.
So does that give you some level of confidence or do you think an exec went over his head?
No, he is the president of Gearbox.
No, but I mean like for the movie.
Like a Hollywood.
Did a Hollywood exec go over his head, or does it give you confidence to know that they are working with him and maybe he is okay with Kevin Hart in that role?
I don't know. I mean, again, maybe Kevin Hart surprises us. I don't know. Listen, like I know the comedy chops will be there.
Yeah.
Like I know that, but I just hope it's not like like Jumanji Kevin Hart.
Right.
And there's like he has to find another part of like he has to dig deeper into his toolbox for this one because this is way different.
You know what? I'll give him his credit, though, for being self-referential in the commercial for that credit card that he's in, where he's yelling at all of his neighbors about what the credit card can do, and the guy's like, buddy, I'm right here. Why are you yelling? Because that's what I do. I was like, okay, you know what? That's good. I'll give him that. That was pretty good.
Again, well, I'll let time sort of work its way through this one and cast judgment when appropriate.
All right, we're going to move on to our backtrack segment, and in this segment of the show, we like to talk about the stories that made us as gamers who we are today. And Kosta, for today's episode, I wanted to bring up stories that we have. I have one in mind. I know you have at least one in mind that maybe when you tell us this story, we won't actually believe you. I mean, not that's a little bit of hyperbole, but what's a crazy story that has happened to you that kind of pushes the edge of believability?
Well, I've got two.
Okay.
That quickly came to my mind. I just couldn't pick one over the other. But the first one's more of like just a statistical anomaly. I remember, I'm trying to remember which Pokemon game I was playing on the.
It's funny because my story does involve Pokemon, so this will be fun.
I if I remember correctly, I think it may have been X and Y, Pokemon X and Y, which was the first Pokemon game on 3DS.
Sure.
And me and a friend of mine, like, we were trying to complete the national decks, and
Sure.
you know, I believe I had a copy of Y, he had a copy of X, and so we were working, like, even trying to, like, you know, make trades with people, you know, through like the global trading system that they got in the game. And we got to a point where we realized, okay, we need to, like, you know, start like breeding baby Pokemon or whatever. And so we got a whole bunch of Pokemon eggs. We start hatching. I ended up hatching. So me, at one point, I hatched back-to-back shiny Pokemon. I hatched a shiny Bonsly, which is the baby form of Sudowoodo, for anyone who knows what Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then I also hatched a shiny Cleffa, which is the baby form of Clefairy.
Aww.
And then shortly after that, so I hatched two shiny Pokemon. I'm like, holy crap. You know, because statistically, I can't remember if these were still the numbers in X and Y, but I think back then, the numbers were at full odds. You'd have like a 1 in like 8,152 chance of hatching a shiny Pokemon or encountering one randomly in the wild.
Wow.
And because we didn't have the national dex completed, so we didn't have a shiny charm, so we didn't have increased odds. So I hatched back-to-back shiny Pokemon, and then literally like a minute after I hatched those, my friend hatched a shiny Pichu.
Oh, whoa.
So the three of us hatched 3 full odds shinies.
Whoa.
Within, like, again, I had back-to-back, and he was like within like a couple eggs after me, got a third one. And so that was kind of crazy. And then the other one is from a online match I had played of Madden.
Mm-hmm.
It was on Madden 10, which was, I believe that one had Larry Fitzgerald and Troy Polamalu on the cover. Geez. That was like the only dual athlete cover they've ever done.
I do remember that.
I was playing an online match, and it was like past a 2-minute warning, and me and my opponent were tied. I had the ball, and I was making my way down the field. Like all I need is a field goal. I was playing for the field goal. You know, I was playing conservative, and but then
you gotta trust the analytics, man.
Yeah,
you don't play for that field goal. You go for it.
So I end up throwing interception. Trying to make my way down the field. I'm like, crap. I'm like, all right, this game's probably not going to go. And he literally, my opponent only needed maybe to go like 20 yards to get into field goal range. I force a fumble. I recover. And then I had the ball back. My very first play, I fumble. He recovers. And
that's hilarious. Oh, God.
And then he fumbles. So he goes 2 plays, third down. He's like third down. And he does like a little screen pass play. And I hit the hit stick. He fumbles. And then I pick it up and run it back for a touchdown. And won the game. Like, when I scored the touchdown, it was like maybe like a second or two left. Like, wow. He was playing for the field goal. He was thinking he would, you know, get the screen pass, because I think he only needed maybe like another like 5 or 10 yards
to
be in like safe field goal range, and he would call a quick timeout. But I ended up.
I've never gotten screen passes to work well in Madden. Just they never seem. I don't know if I screw up the timing or what. They just never seem to work.
In Madden 10 and 11, I had a lot of success with the screen passes because I remember I would just be like, if I wanted to win a game on screen passes, I would play as the Falcons and I would just throw a screen pass to Julio Jones. And would normally, and if they were playing man-to-man coverage, it would normally be a quick juke or a spin, and then I was down the sideline and gone. But yeah, so that was just such a wild, like 3 turnovers.
That's crazy.
Within less than 2 minutes time, and then I managed to get the benefit of picking up a fumble for a touchdown. I have no idea what was going on there. Like I said, there were 2 instances where I thought, all right, this game's over. I'm going to lose, and it was absolutely insane.
Hey, I mean, anything can happen in football, right? I mean, we all saw that Baltimore Vikings game in the snow a few years ago.
Yep.
No, that's pretty good. So like I said, it's funny that one of your stories involved Pokemon, because the story that inspired me to make this segment is Pokemon related. And it's even farther back, though. It's back, I think it was either Pokemon Red or Pokemon Yellow. So it's that category. So I don't know how in the world this happened. Somehow, I made it to the Elite Four, having involved none of my starters. Like, all of my starters were still the original, like, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, whatever. This was Yellow, actually, because I had all of the main characters. And I had, like, all these terrible low-level Pokemon. Like, I did not believe in evolving them, apparently. And yet, somehow, I made it through the whole game. I don't know how. And I couldn't even recall how. Like, I was, like, 11, 12 years old. I would have no idea how I did it. So I made it to the Elite Four. Somehow, I got to Lance, who was the last one of the main Elite Four. Mm-hmm. And this battle with Lance was ridiculous. Somehow, I made it to his last Dragonite. And all I had left was a Ghastly. A Ghastly. So, but here's the thing. His Dragonite, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's a glitch in the game, was not using any offensive attacks. He was only using attacks that, like, raised his stats or, like, attacks that didn't have any effect on Ghastly. Mm-hmm. And he just kept using those attacks. And what happened is that Ghastly, I ended up using Rage. Mm-hmm. And I thought Rage was supposed to end after a few rounds. No, this Rage went the entire battle. So not even kidding. It was literally a battle of me just sitting there, hitting the A button, because Ghastly would use Rage, and Dragonite would take some damage. Dragonite would try to use, like, some sort of, like, shield or something to raise its stats, and eventually it ran out of power points. So it didn't even have an attack to use. And so I told you this was going to be a crazy to believe story. Dragonite's health gets down to, like, the littlest bit, right? And I'm like, oh my god, yes, this is finally over. It's been an hour. Oh my god, I just want this to be over. Lance uses a Hyper Potion! Yeah. The health goes all the way back up. And here's the thing. I'm still stuck as Ghastly, still using Rage. I can't break out of it. So literally, my turn is nothing. It's just Ghastly uses Rage. And then it moves on. And Dragonite has no attacks. So I literally just have to sit there hitting the A button as his health just slowly chips away. Finally, he dies. And Ghastly immediately evolves into a Haunter. Like, he gains so much experience. He evolves into a Haunter, like, on the spot. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. I feel so good. This is amazing. I walk out of that battle with Lance, go right into the battle with Gary, lost it on his first Pokemon. So, see, like I said, it's hard to believe that happened the way it did, but it did.
So I actually remember seeing, it's funny, I remember seeing, like, a post on Reddit, and the way that the original Pokemon games were, like, coded like that. Like there's probably an answer in there as to why that was happening, because it's like a lot of like if and scenarios like built in, and it doesn't make for the smartest battle AI, because but like someone actually bothered to go through like. I mean, I only looked at a small fraction of it, but he actually like this guy ran like a program on his computer with I guess Pokemon Red or Blue, whichever one, and had every single trainer like NPC trainer in the game play against all the other trainers in the game, like see who is the strongest trainer, who is the best like trainer, like NPC trainer in the game, and actually I think the answer ended up being Professor Oak, because apparently they had originally coded in the game
that's right
that Professor Oak was like the actual like final battle of Red and Blue, but they took it out, but the coding is still there in the game. like there's code in there like for Professor Oak, and he has a team of Pokemon to fight with.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that was interesting though. But yeah, it's like so the reason why Dragonite kind of got stuck in that loop, can be explained with the way they coded the game. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like I said, it was just the weirdest thing that he got stuck in that loop, and then my Ghastly also got stuck in a loop. So it was two loops that neither of which I could break out of, and it was just so weird. It's like the most annoying sludge of a match I've ever encountered in my life. Anyway, so that was it. That was our backtrack statement. I just had to tell that story. All right, so before we go, one last thing. So Hitman 3 came out recently, and speedrunners are already taking Hitman 3 to task. Apparently, some speedrunners can beat the Dubai mission in 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Apparently, it involves getting out of an elevator, shooting a wall, and the targets are right there, and then the targets get distracted, and then you shoot both the targets, and then run back into the elevator. So, I only bring it up because I just wonder, have you ever, like, played a game and watched a speedrun of the game and took tips from what that speedrunner did to help you get through a game faster?
I don't think I've ever used a speedrunner.
Yeah, just curious
as an example, but I mean there have been, I mean not in recent memory, but I mean there have probably been a couple of instances like a while back where I may have gotten stuck somewhere, or I know there were a couple of instances where, especially on the 360, there were a couple of, I remember, game achievements, and there was like a glitch where some of them wouldn't pop right away, like even if you did everything exactly as, but then there are people out there who are really great at figuring out like, oh, if you do this little extra thing, that it'll sort of like, you know, recorrect itself and it'll give you the achievement or whatever. But I remember there was like the last time I remember using YouTube or anything to try and figure something out, there was an achievement in going back to Borderlands and Borderlands 2, where you would find every named location in the game.
Oh.
And I remember like doing the math. I'm like, there's one left, and I remember like going through every single map. Like I'm like, I have not like left a stone unturned. I'm like, what in the world am I missing? And there's like this one location that you sort of have to, you know, you wouldn't normally just stumble onto this location.
Sure.
It is literally a spot that is so small and you have to make a couple of jumps to get to.
Right.
You know, and it's a named location. You know, so I'm like, who was the person who found that spot? That could then inform the millions of other people that are like, what the hell? I'm pretty sure I have found every single named location in the game, but there's apparently one I'm missing.
Yeah.
You know, So yeah, it's instances like that where it's where I think the developers intentionally make you work to try and get what would appear to be an easy achievement.
Right. And I think I brought it up, but like when I replayed Super Mario Sunshine and 3D Mario All Stars, I used a bunch of speedrunner tricks just to beat levels that I just was like, you know what, I ain't doing this level. Like there are some ways to bypass like stupid mini games. Like there's like a roulette wheel that you can spray and you have to get like a certain combination. And there's apparently a way that you can just glitch your way through that. And it took a few tries, but I pulled it off, and I think it eventually made the run a little bit faster. And then there were just some tricks I just wanted to learn because I was like, oh, that's cool. I managed to bypass this whole level just by doing this one really easy trick. And so that speedrun in Hitman just made me think of that, because there are some games now where it's just like, I feel like if I'm not trying to speedrun it, it's like, what am I doing? It feels like I'm a dinosaur. Like, why am I playing it through regular? I should find a way to get past this. Right. All right, well, that's it. That's all we got for our show today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can connect with us on Facebook and Twitter with @JumpButtonPod. Until next time, see you in the Funny Papers.